He was the first person who truly understood her dreams and aspirations, the first person who made her feel like she could be both a loving daughter and an independent woman with her own destiny. In Lagos, David continued to grapple with his own internal struggles. His conversations with his mother had left him conflicted. On one hand, he understood the importance of family legacy, tradition, and faith. On the other hand, he couldn't deny his feelings for Amina. The bond they had formed transcended cultural and religious boundaries, and he believed in the possibility of building a life together that honored both of their backgrounds. One evening, after a particularly tense dinner with his parents, where the topic of marriage and suitable partners had been brought up once again, David made a decision. He couldn't continue living in limbo, torn between the expectations of his family and his love for Amina. He needed to take action, and that meant confronting the situation head-on. The next morning, David booked a flight to Kano. He knew it was a bold move, one that could either pave the way for acceptance or completely destroy any chance of being with Amina. But he also knew that if he didn't try, he would regret it for the rest of his life. When he arrived in Kano, the air was hot and dry, a stark contrast to the humid, bustling atmosphere of Lagos. As the car he had hired made its way through the streets of the ancient city, David couldn't help but feel a sense of apprehension. He had no idea how Alhaji Bello would react to his presence, and the possibility of outright rejection loomed large in his mind. Amina had been notified of David's arrival and was waiting for him at the farm's entrance. When she saw him step out of the car, her heart raced with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. She had never imagined that David would come all the way to Kano to confront her father. The risks were enormous, but the fact that he had made the journey filled her with hope. "David," Amina said, rushing forward to greet him, her face both light with joy and clouded with worry. "I can't believe you're here." David smiled, though his expression was tinged with nervousness. "I couldn't wait any longer, Amina. We've been talking for months, and I knew I had to take this step. I want to meet your father. I want to show him that I'm serious about us." Amina's heart swelled with affection for David, but at the same time, fear gripped her. "David, my father, he's not like your father. He's strict, and he's very proud of our traditions. I don't know how he'll react." "I know," David said, his voice steady but firm. "But I have to try. I believe in us and I'm willing to face whatever comes our way." Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and cast a warm, orange glow over the farm, David found himself sitting across from Alhaji Muhammad Bello in the family's grand but simple living room. The atmosphere was tense, and every word seemed to hang in the air between them. Alhaji Bello, a tall imposing man with a thick beard and a stern expression, regarded David with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. He had heard about this young man from Lagos, and while he respected David's family name, he had no intention of allowing his daughter to marry outside of their faith and culture. "So, David Adeyemi," Alhaji Bello began, his voice deep and authoritative. "You've come all the way from Lagos to speak with me about my daughter. I must admit, I am surprised. This is not the kind of matter that is easily discussed." David, though nervous, remained respectful and composed. "Yes, Alhaji. I came here because I wanted to speak to you in person. I respect your family, your culture and your faith. I know that Amina and I come from different worlds, but I believe that we can find a way to honor both of our traditions. I care deeply for your daughter, and I want to be with her." Alhaji Bello's eyes narrowed, and for a long moment, he said nothing. The room was so silent that David could hear the faint ticking of a clock in the background. When Alhaji finally spoke, his tone was measured, but there was a hardness to it. "David, I do not doubt your sincerity," he said slowly. "But you must understand, in our culture, in our faith, marriage is not just about love. It is about family, about preserving our way of life. My daughter is a Muslim, and you are a Christian. How do you expect this to work? What will your families think? What will the community say? David took a deep breath, knowing that this was the moment of truth. I understand your concerns, Al-Haji, and I don't take them lightly. But Amina and I share the same values: kindness, respect, and a desire to make the world a better place. We both want to honor our families and our traditions. I'm not asking anyone to change their faith or their beliefs. I'm asking for a chance to prove that love can bridge the gap between our worlds. Al-Haji Bello remained silent, his face unreadable. Amina, who had been sitting quietly beside her mother, held her breath, waiting for her father's response. She knew how deeply he valued tradition, and she feared that his answer would be final. After what felt like an eternity, Al-Haji spoke again, his voice softer but still firm. David, you are a brave young man to come here and speak to me so openly. I respect your courage, but this is not a decision I can make lightly. Our faith is central to our lives, and the path you are proposing is fraught with challenges. I will need time to consider what you have said. David nodded, grateful that Al-Haji Bello hadn't outright rejected him, but knowing that the journey ahead was far from over. He rose to his feet, bowing slightly as a sign of respect. Thank you, Al-Haji. I appreciate your willingness to listen, and I hope we can find a way forward. As David left the room, Amina followed him outside, her heart heavy with both hope and fear. David, she whispered, her voice trembling. What if my father says no? What if this never works? David reached out and took her hand, squeezing it gently. No matter what happens, Amina, I'm not giving up on us. We'll find a way, I promise. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty. Amina's father remained distant, considering the matter carefully. He consulted with family members and religious leaders, seeking their advice on how to handle the situation. Meanwhile, David returned to Lagos, where he faced his own set of challenges with his family. Olufunke had not warmed to the idea of her son marrying a Muslim girl, but she could see how much Amina meant to David. Over time, she began to soften, realizing that her son's happiness was more important than adhering strictly to societal expectations. Femi, on the other hand, remained more pragmatic, concerned about the potential social and business implications of such a union. Weeks passed, and as David and Amina continued to wait, they grew closer, finding solace in their shared determination to make their relationship work. They knew that love alone would not be enough to overcome the obstacles they faced, but they believed that with patience, understanding, and mutual respect, they could create a life together that honored both of their cultures. Finally, after much deliberation, Al-Haji Bello summoned Amina to his study. His face was stern, but his eyes held a flicker of something Amina hadn't seen before, perhaps a hint of reluctant acceptance. Amina, he began, his deep voice carrying the weight of his authority, I have thought long and hard about this situation. I have spoken to your uncles, consulted with our religious leaders, and considered the future of our family and the community. What you are asking is not something our people take lightly. Amina felt her heart race, but she remained silent, her hands trembling slightly in her lap. I raised you to honor our traditions, to be a good Muslim and a good daughter. Al-Haji Bello continued. The idea of you marrying a Christian man, especially one from the south, goes against everything I have believed and taught you. Amina's breath caught in her throat, bracing herself for what was to come. She expected her father to deliver the final blow, to tell her that it was impossible, that she would have to choose between her family and the man she loved. But then, something unexpected happened. Al-Haji Bello said slowly, but, you are my daughter. I have watched you grow into a smart, independent woman, and I see that you are not making this decision lightly. You have always respected our family and our faith. And despite my reservations, I must acknowledge that times are changing. Amina's eyes widened in surprise. This was not the firm rejection she had expected. She listened intently as her father continued. I cannot say that I am happy with this choice, and I still have concerns about the future. But I also know that if I forbid you from seeing David, you will not be happy. I have seen the way you talk about him, the way your eyes light up when you speak of him. That kind of connection is rare. Amina felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, but she fought to keep her emotions in check. Her father had never spoken to her like this before, so vulnerably and so honestly. Amina, I will not stand in your way. Alhaji Bello said at last. But there will be conditions. If you are serious about marrying this young man, then both of you must show respect for our family's traditions and faith. I will insist that you continue to practice Islam, and I will expect David to understand and honor that. And as for your children, they must be raised with an understanding of our culture and beliefs. Amina's heart swelled with relief, though she knew that her father's decision came with many strings attached. But it was more than she had hoped for, a chance to be with David, with her father's reluctant blessing. Thank you, Baba, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. I promise you that David and I will honor both of our traditions. We will make this work. Alhaji Bello nodded, though his expression remained serious. We shall see. You may tell him of my decision, but know this, the path ahead will not be easy. The world will not always be kind to a marriage like yours. You will face challenges, and you must be prepared to face them together. Amina nodded, her heart full of both gratitude and determination. She knew her father was right, there would be difficulties, moments of doubt and conflict. But with David by her side, she believed they could face anything. When Amina called David to tell him the news, he could hardly believe it. He had prepared himself for the worst, imagining that Alhaji Bello would reject him outright. Instead, there was now a path forward, albeit a challenging one. I can't believe it, Amina, David said, his voice full of emotion. Your father is allowing us to be together. Yes, he is, Amina replied, her voice filled with relief and excitement. But there are conditions. We'll have to work hard to make sure we respect both of our families and their expectations. I'm ready, David said firmly. Whatever it takes. I'm ready to do whatever we need to make this work. Amina smiled, feeling a deep sense of hope for the first time in weeks. We can do this. Over the following months, David and Amina embarked on the delicate journey of navigating their relationship in the context of two very different cultures. There were many difficult conversations, both with their families and with each other. David's mother, Olufunke, slowly came to terms with the idea of her son marrying a Muslim, though it took time for her to fully accept it. She and Amina had several heart-to-heart conversations, where they discussed their differing views on faith, family and tradition. Though these discussions were not always easy, Amina's calm and respectful demeanor gradually won Olufunke over.